All right, guys. So today I'm going to talk about how not all input is equal. I used to think that just because you input you got a certain amount of hours of immersion, that you're going to reach a certain level of ability, right? And I just realized that not many people talk about this, you know, because people in the immersion community, they're just like, yeah, just keep immersing, bro, just keep immersing, and you get good. And it's like, okay, well, it is partially true, but you could actually get better results and you might actually be able to improve faster in your ability with the same amount of time, depending on how you use that time. That's when I said input is not all equal, because here's the thing: different types of immersion have different levels of difficulty. So there's very easy content, which is basically content that's very easy to understand, which is like it uses very basic vocabulary. And there's like novels, and there's like very hard anime, right? That use very sophisticated vocabulary. They go and use a ton of literary words, and you're gonna have to know like another like 10,000, 20,000 words, right, in order to understand those types of anime. So there's just a huge gap in like terms of difficulty across immersion, right? Like the same vocabulary required to understand a YouTube video will not be the same when you try to read a book. And when I realized is that it's not about how much immersion you have, it's about how you're sequencing that immersion. What I mean? Well, in the beginning, everything's incomprehensible, right? But then you arrive at a point in your language ability where you'll be able to understand slice of life and basically basic kind of YouTube videos and live streams on YouTube at almost 100%. Like you arrive at a point where it's extremely comprehensible. You understand virtually everything they're saying in like a slice of life TV show, in a very easy TV show. Once you reach this point, it would have been smart if I had slowly increased the difficulty of immersion over time and just stuck with the immersion that was like at my level. Because here's the problem with me, right? When I was immersing in Japanese, I have roughly I probably have roughly 5,000 to 6,000 hours of active time learning Japanese. That's active. So probably 5,000 to 6,000 hours of active time learning Japanese over the course of 3 years. Yeah, for the course of 3 or 4 years, right? And the thing is that even though I've achieved a pretty good level of Japanese, I would have achieved better results if I had sequentially increased the difficulty of my immersion as I got better. Because the problem with me was I was immersing in very hard content in the beginning. For example, I was immersing in ReZero, right? This is volume 33, but I read the first volume of ReZero, right? And this is a very high level light novel, right? So it was stupid of me to go immerse in this as my first light novel. Absolutely retarded. Because this is an extremely high level light novel, right? Very hard expressions. You read this, you need to have a high level of fluency to read this. But if you read something like Konosuba, this is very easy type of light novel to read. So even though they're both light novels, this one should have been a better start. This one, I should have picked this light novel over ReZero, because this light novel uses simpler vocabulary, simpler dialogue, simpler type of writing style. It's very comedy relief type, So being able to read something like this is not going to require, that much of vocabulary, right? So what I should have done was I watched a ton of anime with varying levels of difficulty. Like I've watched very hard anime, like ReZero, Legend of Galactic Heroes, and I've watched intermediate anime, Hunter x Hunter, Attack on Titan, JoJo, and then I've watched very easy anime, things like Slice of Life, like Clannad. There's Fairy Tail, Black Clover, Naruto, like early Bleach, like Soul Society Bleach. Like these are all very easy anime, and these see how these animes are they range in difficulty, right? And what I should have done was when I should have just focused only on easy anime in the beginning, only on easy content, right? And then gradually increased it to harder content. So gradually increase it to where okay, once I mastered easy anime, let's say I mastered Fairy Tail, Black Clover, like very easy slice of life anime, and like very easy shonen anime, I should have gone into more genre specific anime. So things like Attack on Titan, because now Attack on Titan, they add in political and military vocabulary, and then a tad bit of literary expressions. So once I transitioned from the easy to the intermediate, I should have basically gradually increased my difficulty of anime. So instead of consuming easy manga, now I switched to medium manga. So things like Vinland Saga, or like maybe Attack on Titan manga, or Hunter x Hunter manga. I mean, Hunter x Hunter manga gets pretty difficult towards the end, Not as much as Berserk, but like anyway, I would have basically once I got to the intermediate stage and mastered and 100% understand, slice of life content, I should have gradually, increased the difficulty to intermediate anime and not even touch advanced. I should have not even gone close to advanced anime. I should have only stuck with intermediate anime in that phase. And then during the intermediate phase, I would have got introduced to my first easy light novel. So this is like the thing, right? In the beginning stages, you're gonna watch easy anime and read easy manga. Don't even mess with light novels, right? Don't even mess with it. Then on the intermediate stage, where you understand easy anime and easy manga at 100%, once you've mastered the domain, then you go to intermediate anime, right? Then you're watching like Hunter x Hunter, then you're watching like, Attack on Titan, very like harder shows. What's another example of an intermediate anime? I mean, I can just look at my list. I mean, I have my anime list right here. Let me just look real quick. But there's like there's like intermediate anime I guess I can watch. Like Gintama. Gintama's a intermediate anime. ReZero, intermediate anime. Magi, Kingdom of the Magic, Labyrinth of Magic. Magi is a very specific genre in fantasy, and it uses some military terms, some politics. So definitely that would be like an intermediate anime. And Mushoku Tensei is like fantasy. Mushoku Tensei is like a easier anime, but it still like has a fantasy vocabulary. So then I would transition into these anime, and then I would transition into intermediate manga, right? So for the intermediate manga, like the easiest manga would be like Gotobu no Hanayome. I haven't read this in so long, but like that manga, the quintessential quintuplets. So after that, I would be reading Kimetsu no Yaiba. So Kimetsu no Yaiba is actually an intermediate manga. It uses actually pretty hard vocabulary, if you guys didn't know. And then I would go to Dr. Stone, right? I would go to, Tokyo Revengers would be classified as an easy anime. So I mean easy manga. I would classify Tokyo Revengers as easy, so you can but for the intermediate manga, JoJo, like part 7, part 8, those would be intermediate manga, right? And then I would introduce myself to easy light novel. So this is how it go. This is how it would go, right? So beginner stage, easy anime, easy manga, then intermediate anime, intermediate manga, easy light novels. So light novels, it's no pictures, right? So if you guys want to get introduced to, light novels, make sure you have mastered easy anime first and manga first, because the transition to light novels and raw books is going to be a lot easier if you do it this way. Trust me, okay? And then once you master this intermediate phase, then you start watching advanced anime, advanced manga, and intermediate light novels, or intermediate to high light novels. So this is like where I am, right? So for hard anime, I would watch Fate Zero, right? I would watch Ginga Eiyu Densetsu, which is like Legend of Galactic Heroes. By the way, one of the hardest anime ever. Tons of vocabulary you won't know. And like hard anime, like the hard anime that I haven't watched. I heard that Ergo Proxies hard. Akira, like the movie Akira. I heard that's also really hard. So I'll just like ask ChatGPT. Basically, you can use AI for this, guys. And ChatGPT is pretty accurate. Like I tested this, guys. Like ChatGPT AI is actually really accurate when it comes to judging the difficulty of anime. Because I would ask it, like, okay, give me a list of hard anime, like very high level difficulty anime, and it'll be actually pretty accurate with like the hardest animes, right? Which would be Ghost in the Shell, right? Fate Zero, like these types of animes. So in the advanced stages, you would watch advanced anime, advanced manga, right? Which advanced manga would be like Berserk, and Kingdom. Okay, Kingdom and Vinland Saga are still hard, but they're like a level below Berserk. So I would classify maybe Kingdom and Vinland Saga in the intermediate manga. But for Berserk, very high difficulty. And then I would introduce myself to like intermediate to advanced light novel, something like this, right? Which is a little bit harder to understand. And then, once you've mastered that domain, you're pretty much like mastered all anime and light novels pretty much. And the only thing that's going to challenge you is to read like super, super hard light novels. Like, I mean, like the Monogatari series, the Zarigoto series, like, but there's only like a very few select light novels out there, that are harder than ReZero, right? That go above this difficulty. Like, I would say, like, if you've mastered this type of light novel, you memorized every single word, you've mastered this type of domain of, difficulty, it's very hard to find another light novel that is harder than this. Because the only ones I can think about that are harder than this, it would be like Monogatari or like Zarigoto, right? Like the Zarigoto series. but like there's not a lot of light novels after this once you've mastered. So once you've mastered this light novel, you've mastered Fate Zero, you've mastered like basically like hard anime. You're at a level of Japanese where like you can pretty much virtually consume like 99% of anime and understand like virtually almost everything. Like you're at a point now where like you're super advanced. But I would have had my input done at this stage. I would have gradually increased the difficulty of my input as I got better. Because the thing with anime is it uses a big wide variety of difficulty. There's a huge level of difficulty like gap, right? Like the difference between Attack on Titan, Phase Zero is like insane. It's just way too much. Like the difficulty is just like it's so clear. You can just see the difficulties, like the amount of words they use, like the difficulty, the grammar. It's just on a completely different level. So not all anime is equal. So that's why not all input is equal, because I would have gone faster results had I gradually increased the vocabulary, right, or gradually increased the difficulty to content, and made sure it was comprehensible. So that's the thing, because I was consuming really hard content, like very early, and that was a mistake, because that really slowed down my progress. Because when I was reading the ReZero light novel, even though I was memorizing a bunch of words, the input was not comprehensible. So I probably hardly acquired anything when I read this light novel. I'm just saying, like in the beginning stages. Now I can read it. Now this is like extremely comprehensible. Like now, if I read this right now, like this is very comprehensible to me. Like I can probably understand like all the words in here. There might be a couple like nuanced words I might not know, but like this is very comprehensible for me. So like for me, I can read this. But back then, bro, when I was trying to learn Japanese at the beginning, like I should not have even touched ReZero. Like I shouldn't have touched it, right? And I want to explain to you why input is not all equal, because there are native speakers, right, that never get good past a certain point. Like what I mean? Well, if you're a native English speaker that never reads, that never watches like sophisticated podcasts or lectures of professors, you're never going to increase your vocabulary in English. You're not really going to ameliorate your ability, as your current ability, because if you don't keep immersing in content that's just a little bit above your level, and the key word is a little bit, not crazy above your level like I try to do. If you just keep immersing in content that's a little bit above your level, basically what that means is you understand 95% of the words, there's an extra 10% that you don't know. That's comprehensive input. So as long as you keep consuming content that's a little bit above your level, you're going to increase your ability over time, right? Because there's some native speakers that never consume books, that never read books, that never went to university. So their domain of language is only in the conversational spoken language. So they never get out of this. They never get out of the spoken conversational language. This is why I know a lot more vocabulary than native speakers that never read. Because the vast amount of words I know typically is in higher level works, like higher level literary works, or like higher level, difficulty of content. And native speakers that don't watch anime or don't read any books will not know the words I know, because they wouldn't have got exposed to these type of words. So they're never going to know these words, because these words don't show up in their domain of language, which is conversational Japanese, spoken Japanese. So that's why there's native speakers that plateau. They plateau because their content that they immerse in is too easy now. They understand everything. And the problem with understanding everything and not increasing the difficulty gradually is you're going to hit a plateau and you're never going to improve now. Like you're going to arrive at a point where like you're just not going to increase your comprehension, because you're not consuming content that's a little bit above your level, right? Now that's most native speakers. My problem was the opposite. I was consuming content that was way too hard from the start, which made it largely incomprehensible for the large majority of the time, right? So like I don't really have the first problem. Like the first problem that most native speakers have is they don't keep improving their own native language because they don't go out there reading books or consuming more sophisticated content. Me, I had the opposite I had the opposite effect. I was consuming really hard stuff from the very beginning, right? So like that's something that I would have backed on. So like you have to have a balance of the right input, right? You want to have input that's just above your level, right? And you want to keep it consistent, right? You want to know where you are. Like the first thing you guys should find out, if you guys are learning a language, is to find out where you are on the input scale. Like which level of difficulty can you comfortably read? Like if you're to watch for example, in French, I understand 100% of live streams, right? Of basically a YouTuber my age that speaks in front of the camera and just talks. I can understand literally 100%. So that's like the easiest form of content that there is in French, right? Which is basically conversational language in spoken French. For me, I can understand like literally 100%. So for me, that's where I'm at. I've mastered easy language. Now, if I want to improve my French, I'm going to have to consume more sophisticated content. Like I'm going to have to go to more adult podcasts where they talk about specific topics that are more sophisticated and smart. And they'll introduce some some vocabulary I won't know. But like that's what I'm going to have to do to increase my French again. I'm going to have to find where I am on the scale. Now with my Japanese, like I've pretty much mastered like intermediate Japanese, right? Like intermediate manga, intermediate anime, and I've mastered easy anime. So now, easy light novels. So now, I'm in a stage where I'm consuming harder anime, harder light novels. So that's where I'm at. But you have to know where you are, and you have to match with your ability, right? Because if you're consuming anything that's too easy or too hard, it's just the progress is not going to be you're not going to progress as fast, because your input being comprehensible dramatically helps. And here's the thing, you can make native content comprehensible, right? Once you reach a stage where you can understand basic content at a 95%. So you can keep the comprehensible model. Like at first, everything's not going to be comprehensible at all. Like at first, when you start watching and learning a new language and you start immersing, you're not going to understand anything. Okay, so everything's going to be incomprehensible at first. But once you reach a point where you're understanding easy content, then that's when I would like you to apply the comprehensible input rule, where you only consume content that's just a little bit above your level, but not too much, right? So guys, just listen to this rule, and your Japanese and your language would dramatically improve despite it being like the same time. Like I spent 6,000 hours with Japanese, but if I had spent those 6,000 hours following this comprehensible input principle, where I would only consume easy anime for the first maybe 1,000, 2,000 hours, maybe for the next 1,000, 2,000 hours, I would consume intermediate content. And then for the last 2,000 hours, I would consume hard content. If I had followed that rule, I would have gotten better results, because I would have gotten more out of my immersion. See, that's the thing. When your input is comprehensible, you get more out of your input. You gain more ability from your input because it's largely comprehensible. See? But, I should have followed the structure in the beginning. And this is why all input is not the same, because there's native speakers that plateau. Like I said, there's a lot of native speakers, Japanese included, that can't read something like this. Like if they tried to read this, bro, if my mom tried to read this, even though she's educated and she went to high school and everything, my mom would not be able to read something like this and understand everything. Like I would be able to understand more of this than her, right? And she might have a harder time understanding the details. Like she might get the story when she reads this, like she will get the general story, but she will miss out on details reading this, right? And that's because her Japanese ability is not to this level. And the reason why is because she plateaued. So despite her being a native speaker, she only knows Japanese within the conversational spoken Japanese realm. She has not stepped outside of that and gone into literary realms like this. Because this light novel uses a lot of literary vocabulary, very domain-specific anime, fantasy terms. So that's the thing, guys. You have to constantly keep seeking comprehensible input, but also don't do what I did, where you went to crazy hard input in the beginning, right? Consuming freaking Fate Zero, and thinking that it's gonna help when literally So that's what I want you guys to keep in mind is, don't consume content that's largely incomprehensible, in the beginning, and don't consume content that's super easy for too long either. So you have to have a right balance, guys. Okay, so make sure you guys take the right balance.